What happens when country music royalty sits down with daytime television's most outspoken host for what should be a friendly promotional interview, only to have the conversation detonate into one of the most explosive confrontations in talk show history? Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused Reba McEntire to completely lose it on live television. Reba arrived at the studio at 9:45 a.m., right on schedule. At 68, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had already conquered every stage worth standing on. Her signature red hair shimmered under the hallway lights, styled perfectly to frame a face that could command both warmth and authority. Dressed in a sleek black blazer and a rich burgundy blouse, she looked every inch the icon she was. "Miss McEntire, we're so honored to have you here," a production assistant said breathlessly. "Well, aren't you sweet?" Reba replied with a kind smile. "I'm looking forward to talking about the new album. It's something I'm real proud of." In the green room, makeup artists worked quickly but reverently, as though preparing a queen for coronation. Reba spoke casually with them, her Oklahoma accent lilting with sincerity. She talked about her new record, a mix of traditional country roots and modern storytelling, featuring collaborations with rising stars who'd made their names through social media. "These young artists are incredible," she said warmly. "The way they connect with fans, or the honesty in their work, it reminds me why I fell in love with music in the first place." But elsewhere in the building, a storm was quietly gathering. Joy Behar sat at the host's table, flipping through her cue cards. Her expression was thoughtful, but the gleam in her eye told a different story. She was preparing to stir the pot. She leaned toward a producer and muttered, "Reba McEntire's been working with a bunch of these TikTok kids. I want to ask her about that, about how real talent seems to matter less than follower counts these days." The producer hesitated. "Maybe keep it focused on her album." Joy's tone sharpened. "That is her work, and it's a fair question. If she can't handle it, maybe she shouldn't be collaborating with these social media stars." What Joy didn't realize was that Reba McEntire had spent decades proving herself to critics who said she was too country, too female, or too real. She wasn't the kind of woman to back down when someone disrespected her craft or the people she believed in. As the cameras rolled and the intro music played, The View kicked off its usual morning banter. Politics, celebrity gossip, lighthearted debates, everything felt ordinary. But then came the transition. Whoopi Goldberg looked into the camera with a smile. "Our next guest needs no introduction. She's a legend, a trailblazer, and the heart of country music. Please welcome Reba McEntire." The audience erupted. Cheers, applause, standing ovations, a wave of admiration filled the studio. Reba walked out with that radiant, unmistakable smile, waving gracefully as she made her way to the table. Whoopi rose to hug her, Sarah Haynes beamed with excitement, and Sunny Hostin offered warm congratulations. Then came Joy. She stayed seated. "Joy, good to see you," Reba said pleasantly, extending her hand. "Reba, thanks for coming," Joy replied, shaking it briefly before gesturing to the guest chair. "Have a seat, we've got some things to discuss." Something in her tone, that subtle emphasis on things to discuss, was the first sign of trouble. But Reba, ever the professional, simply smiled and took her seat. The first few minutes flowed easily. Whoopi asked about the album's inspiration. Sarah gushed about seeing Reba live. Sunny asked thoughtful questions about how she balanced business, music, and life. Reba answered each with her trademark charm, making the crowd laugh and lean in with admiration. Then, Joy leaned forward. "So, Reba," she began, her smile polite but her tone calculated. "You've been in the business for decades. You've seen everything change. What do you think about these young artists today? The ones who seem more focused on followers than talent?" The studio air tightened instantly. Reba's smile didn't fade, but her eyes hardened just slightly. "Well, Joy, every generation connects with fans differently. These young artists are incredibly talented. They're just using new tools." Joy wasn't satisfied. "But don't you think social media has cheapened music? I mean, anyone with a phone can call themselves a musician now. Back in your day, you had to earn it." A low murmur rippled through the audience. Even Whoopi shot Joy a warning look. Reba's tone was calm but firm. I have to disagree. Talent is talent, no matter the platform. Some of the most gifted artists I've met started online. The heart of music hasn't changed, just how we share it. Joy waved a hand dismissively. Come on, Reba, you can't seriously say some kid lip-syncing on TikTok has the same artistic value as what you built? There's a difference between entertainment and art. That was it. The moment the air froze, Reba lifted her chin, her southern accent deepening with resolve. Joy, last I checked, you were a comedian before you became a talk show host. Tell me, does comedy only count if it's on stage, or can someone be funny on Instagram or YouTube? The audience gasped. Joy stiffened, her fake smile faltering. I never claimed to be an authority on comedy, she snapped, but there's a difference between paying your dues and getting famous overnight. Paying your dues? Reba repeated softly, her voice steady but sharp as a blade. Joy, honey, I started singing in bars at 16. $20 a night, if I was lucky. I drove thousands of miles in beat-up cars, sang for crowds of 5, and was told I'd never make it because I was too country. I know what paying dues means. The crowd was silent, completely hooked, and Reba wasn't finished. These young artists you're talking about, they're paying their dues too, just differently. Joy crossed her arms, unwilling to back down. I'm not questioning your journey, Reba, she said tightly. I'm talking about kids who post one viral video and suddenly think they're musicians. Her tone was clipped, her words laced with judgment. The tension was so sharp you could almost hear it humming through the air. Reba's voice dropped a note lower, calm but charged with unmistakable strength. That's not how it works, Joy. Those kids aren't handed success overnight. They work long hours, writing, practicing, creating, connecting. Just because it looks easy doesn't mean it is. The studio lights gleamed off Reba's hair as she spoke, her composure now fierce rather than friendly. They're building something with their own hands, not waiting for someone to give them permission. Whoopi shifted slightly, sensing the air thickening. Maybe we should, she began, but Reba raised a hand gently, not taking her eyes off Joy. No, Whoopi, let me finish. Her voice was steady, unwavering. I've been in this business for 40 years. I've learned that respect goes both ways. I respect any artist who gives their heart to what they do, whether they're performing at the Grand Ole Opry or singing in their bedroom with a phone camera. The audience broke into quiet applause, but Joy barely blinked. Her pride wouldn't let her concede. I'm just saying, Joy replied sharply, there's still something to be said for the traditional path. Record labels, producers, professionals, real industry guidance. She leaned back in her chair, her tone dismissive, as if the words themselves carried authority. Reba laughed, but there was no humor in it, only disbelief. Traditional path? She echoed. Joy, the so-called traditional path you're talking about nearly destroyed my career 3 times. I had executives tell me to change my sound, my image, my very name. That path kept more talented artists silent than it ever helped succeed. You're romanticizing an industry that chews people up and spits them out. The audience was motionless, eyes wide, hanging on every word. Cameras zoomed in to capture the fire in Reba's expression, decades of battle scars from an industry that had tried to mold her into something she wasn't. These young artists, she continued, are finally taking control of their destiny. They're writing their own songs, producing their own music, building fan bases without begging for approval from some man in a suit who doesn't know a single chord. Joy's face tightened. But what about quality control, Reba? Doesn't that matter anymore? She asked, almost defensively, her voice rising a little. Reba's head tilted slightly, her patience gone. She rose from her chair, something almost unheard of during a View interview. The audience gasped. Every camera scrambled to reframe her. Her posture was tall, unshakable. Quality control, she repeated. You mean the same system that pushes terrible songs just because an executive thinks they'll sell? The same one that ignores genuine talent because it doesn't fit a formula? If that's your version of quality control, Joy, then no, it doesn't work. The silence that followed was electric. Joy blinked rapidly, realizing too late that this conversation had spiraled beyond control. I think we're talking about 2 different things here, she said, her voice faltering slightly. Reba shook her head. No, we're not. We're talking about respect. Respect for the artists, for their work, and for the courage it takes to put their soul into something and share it with the world. That's what this is about. Her words hit like thunderclaps. You could feel the room holding its breath. Then it happened. In one shocking moment, Joy slammed her palm on the table, a sharp crack that echoed through the studio. "You know what, Reba?" she snapped, her frustration boiling over. "Maybe the problem isn't with young artists. Maybe the problem is with you, with established artists who can't handle criticism." The studio froze. You could have heard a pin drop. Reba's eyes widened slightly, not with surprise, but with the kind of slow-burning fury that comes when someone crosses an invisible line. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice suddenly quiet but carrying the weight of a storm. Joy doubled down, her pride outweighing her instinct. "You heard me. Maybe you just can't take honest criticism. You defend these kids like they're saving the world, but they probably don't even know who you are." A collective gasp swept through the audience. Whoopi's eyebrows shot up. Sarah covered her mouth in disbelief. Even Sunny looked like she wanted to vanish behind her coffee mug. Reba stood perfectly still for one long, dangerous second. Then she stepped forward, 3 slow, deliberate steps toward Joy. The cameras followed every movement, every flicker of intensity in her face. "Joy Behar," she said clearly, her voice slicing through the silence like glass. "I've spent 40 years in a business that thrives on criticism. I've been told I was too old, too country, too emotional, too modern, too everything. I've been through bankruptcy, divorce, heartbreak, and loss, and I'm still standing. So don't you ever suggest that I can't handle criticism." Joy's confidence faltered, her color draining. But Reba wasn't finished. "You know what I can't handle?" she continued, her voice now rising, steady and fierce. "I can't handle watching someone with your platform tear down artists who are out there doing their best. I can't stand seeing you mock people's dreams because you don't understand their path. And I especially can't stand being told I'm too sensitive for defending them." The words hung heavy in the air. The studio was dead silent. The energy was so charged, it almost buzzed. Then, something shifted, something no one expected. Joy's shoulders dropped, her eyes filled with tears. For a moment, she didn't look like the bold talk show host everyone knew. She looked human, vulnerable. "You're right," Joy said softly, almost to herself. Reba blinked, momentarily thrown off guard. "I'm sorry," Joy continued, louder this time, her voice trembling. "You're right. I came in here ready to make a point, to stir things up. I thought I could make a few jokes about country music and social media stars and then move on. But you didn't laugh it off, and you shouldn't have. What I said wasn't fair. It wasn't criticism. It was disrespect." The entire studio seemed to exhale at once. Whoopi stared in disbelief. Sarah looked on the verge of tears. Sunny nodded silently, her eyes soft with empathy. Reba slowly returned to her seat, her guard still up but her fury fading. "Joy, we all have opinions," she said gently. But Joy lifted her hand, stopping her. "No, let me finish," she said. "I've spent years calling out hypocrisy, speaking truth to power, fighting for the underdog. But somewhere along the line, I forgot what that really means. I became the person who punches down instead of lifting others up." Her voice cracked on the last words. There was a deep, almost sacred silence. This wasn't a talk show moment anymore. It was something raw and real. "I don't know the first thing about the music industry," Joy admitted, her eyes shining with emotion. "I don't know what it takes to write a song or to pour your soul out on stage. I don't even know what it feels like to have people tell you you're not good enough for 40 years and keep going anyway. I was talking about things I don't understand. And worse, I was mocking people I've never even met." Reba's face softened completely now. The anger was gone, replaced by quiet understanding. "Joy," she said softly, "it's not about agreeing on everything. It's about listening." Joy nodded, tears slipping down her cheek. "You're right again. I disrespected you. I disrespected the new generation, and I disrespected the people watching at home who love them. That's not opinion. That's just me being wrong." The tension that had strangled the studio was slowly melting. Sarah let out a shaky laugh of relief, and the audience began to breathe again. You could almost feel hearts unclenching in that room. Joy gave a small, self-deprecating smile. "You know what's crazy?" she said quietly. "My daughter's obsessed with these young artists I was criticizing. She shows me videos all the time, kids writing songs about real struggles, playing guitar, helping people feel seen. And every time, I'm amazed, but then I sit here on TV and act like I know better." Reba smiled for the first time since the clash began. "There's nothing wrong with being skeptical, Joy. Change is hard, but there's a difference between being skeptical and being dismissive." "I crossed that line," Joy admitted, "several times. The comment about established artists? Completely out of line. You're a legend. You've earned every ounce of respect you have." Reba leaned forward, her voice softer now. "And maybe I could have made my point with a little less fire," she said, chuckling lightly. Joy let out a genuine laugh, the first real one of the segment. "Fire? You practically burned me alive, and I deserved every second of it." The audience broke into applause again, some even standing. The shift in energy was palpable. What had started as a clash had turned into something unexpectedly powerful. Two women confronting their pride, their differences, and finding mutual respect. Joy leaned back in her chair, wiping the corner of her eye but still smiling. "You know," she said with a shaky breath, "this whole conversation started because I thought I could be clever. I wanted a headline. Instead, I got a lesson I'll never forget." The studio audience chuckled softly, sensing the atmosphere had shifted from battle to redemption. Reba smiled faintly, her composure back in place but her warmth unmistakable. "Well, if it makes you feel any better, I didn't exactly plan to turn this into a masterclass in Southern stubbornness," she said, and the audience laughed with her. Joy laughed too, the tension leaving her face completely. "Southern stubbornness? That's one way to put it. I'd call it a public schooling. And I was the student." Reba grinned, her laughter light and easy now. "Oh, Joy, I don't know about that. You gave as good as you got." Whoopi spoke for the first time in several minutes, her tone a blend of admiration and relief. "Now this is what we need more of. Real conversations that don't just end in shouting matches, people willing to admit when they're wrong, and others willing to forgive." The crowd applauded again, the release of built-up emotion filling the studio like a wave of relief. Joy turned toward Reba, her tone humble and curious. "You've worked with these young artists. I clearly don't understand them as well as I thought I did. So tell me, what are they really like? What am I missing here?" Reba's expression softened completely, her eyes lighting up as the subject turned to something she loved. "Oh, Joy, they're amazing. There's this young woman, maybe 19, 20 years old, and she writes these beautiful songs about mental health and growing up in small towns. She plays guitar, piano, writes everything herself. She's built a community online where fans lift each other up. She's probably helped more people through her music than half the therapists in this country." Joy blinked, genuinely intrigued. "Really? Really?" Reba said with a firm nod. "And then there's this kid, 17 maybe. He does acoustic covers of old country songs, but with his own twist. Because of him, millions of teenagers now know who Hank Williams and Patsy Cline were. He's preserving our history while still making it feel fresh." The audience broke into soft applause, touched by her words. Joy leaned forward, fascinated now rather than defensive. "That actually sounds incredible. I never thought about it that way." Reba smiled, her voice rich with conviction. "These kids aren't trying to replace traditional country. They're carrying it forward. They're mixing old with new, storytelling with technology. They're keeping the heart of the genre alive, just in their own language." Sunny finally spoke, her voice warm and emotional. "This is beautiful. This, right here, is what the show is supposed to be about." "It really is," Whoopi agreed, smiling at both women. "This is growth, live on air. I think we all learned something today." Joy turned toward the camera, her voice steady but softer than before. "If you're watching this," she said, "I want to say something. When you dismiss someone's art, you're not just criticizing their work. You're judging their story, their struggle, and their dreams. And that's something I did today. And I shouldn't have." Her honesty hit hard. The audience fell silent, some nodding in respect. Reba looked at her with warmth and sincerity. "And I learned something too," she said. "Sometimes, The best way to open someone's eyes isn't by yelling. It's by helping them see what they missed. Though, she added with a smirk, the yelling sure made for good TV. The room erupted in laughter, the mood now light, easy, almost joyful. Alyssa, who had been watching silently through most of the storm, leaned forward and said, "Well, that was one of the most intense, honest, and entertaining segments we've ever had. Reba, you might just be the best guest we've ever had, and the scariest." Reba laughed. "Scariest? I'm just passionate, honey. There's a difference." Joy chuckled, shaking her head. "Passionate, that's one word for it. You were like a one-woman hurricane in heels. I haven't been put in my place like that since my mother caught me sneaking out in high school." The audience roared with laughter. Even the camera crew couldn't hide their smiles. The once tense energy had transformed into something warm and unforgettable. Reba placed a hand on Joy's arm gently. "You know, it takes a lot to admit you were wrong on live television. That's no small thing. That's strength, not weakness." Joy nodded slowly, her eyes glistening again, but this time with gratitude. "Thank you, Reba. You didn't just defend your industry today. You reminded me what respect really looks like." For a brief moment, the two women just looked at each other. Two icons from different worlds, suddenly united by something simple and human. The kind of silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was meaningful, filled with mutual understanding. Whoopi smiled softly, almost whispering, "Well, ladies, I think that's what we call a full circle moment." Joy exhaled, smiling toward the audience again. "You know what, Reba? If I ever forget this lesson, I give you full permission to come back here and yell at me again." "Oh, I don't need permission," Reba quipped, and the audience burst into laughter again. "But next time, I promise to bring cookies to make it easier." Sarah clapped her hands, laughing. "Now that's how you end a confrontation." Whoopi leaned toward the camera, grinning. "That's all the time we have today. But I think we just witnessed something pretty special. Two strong women proving that disagreement doesn't have to mean disrespect." As the closing music began to play, the audience stood and applauded again. Not the polite kind of applause, but the genuine kind that comes when something real just happened. Joy reached across the table to shake Reba's hand again, but Reba didn't just shake it. She pulled her in for a hug. Off to the side, cameras caught the two women chatting quietly as the credits rolled. Reba was recommending artists and songs, while Joy typed notes into her phone, determined to give those young musicians the respect they deserved next time. The moment felt bigger than a TV segment. It was a turning point, a reminder that respect, when lost, can still be found again through honesty, courage, and humility. It showed that even when tempers flare and pride takes over, growth is possible. And as the studio lights dimmed, one thing was clear. What began as an explosive confrontation had transformed into something unforgettable, a rare, powerful moment of truth, healing, and respect, broadcast for the whole world to see. When the cameras stopped rolling, the studio didn't quiet down. It shifted. The applause continued long after the credits ended, as if the audience couldn't quite let go of what they'd witnessed. Crew members exchanged wide-eyed looks, whispering to each other about what had just unfolded. Some still had their hands pressed to their chests, as if trying to catch their breath. Reba and Joy lingered on the set, talking softly while the other hosts gathered around them. Whoopi had a smile that was half pride, half disbelief. "That," she said, shaking her head, "is why live television still matters." Sarah nodded beside her, still clutching her coffee mug like it was a lifeline. "I thought they were going to walk off set halfway through," she admitted, and then, boom, it turned into something beautiful. Backstage, producers were already huddled together, replaying the footage. "This segment is going to blow up online," one whispered. "It's raw, it's emotional, it's real. People won't believe this wasn't scripted." The director, still wearing his headset, exhaled in awe. "We just captured television history." Meanwhile, Reba and Joy's conversation continued quietly, long after the lights dimmed. Joy had her phone out, typing furiously into her notes app as Reba listed names of artists she wanted her to check out. Real names, real stories, real voices. "Start with this one," Reba said, showing her a clip. "She reminds me of myself at 20. Same fire, same heart." Joy watched the short video on Reba's phone, a young girl with a guitar singing with tears in her voice. Something shifted in her expression. "She's incredible," Joy whispered, almost to herself, "and I would have never known if I hadn't heard this today." Reba smiled softly, the same kind of smile that had carried her through decades of storms. "That's why I fight for them," she said. "They deserve to be heard." Later that afternoon, social media caught fire. Clips from the segment flooded every platform within hours. Headlines exploded across entertainment sites. Reba McEntire confronts Joy Behar in emotional on-air showdown, the View's most explosive and heartfelt episode ever. From clash to compassion, how Reba and Joy turned a fight into a lesson on respect. People couldn't stop talking about it. Fans praised Reba for defending young artists with such grace and power. Viewers admired Joy for publicly owning her mistake, something rarely seen in the world of television egos. The internet, for once, seemed united. This wasn't just drama, it was transformation, live on screen. A week later, The View released an extended behind-the-scenes clip online, the unedited footage showing the moments after the broadcast ended. It showed Reba and Joy laughing, talking like old friends. Joy even joked, "You know, Reba, I might have just become your biggest fan." Reba laughed, replying, "Well, that's what happens when country meets confrontation." The clip went viral all over again, but for different reasons this time. People weren't sharing it because of the fight. They were sharing it because of the forgiveness. It became a symbol of what could happen when people actually listen to each other, even after things go wrong. In the days that followed, Reba's album sales spiked dramatically. But more importantly, so did streams for several of the young artists she had mentioned on air. The same names Joy had once dismissed were suddenly trending. Their songs were reaching new audiences who had never heard them before. Reba later told a magazine interviewer, "That's what makes it worth it. Every bit of that tension, every awkward moment, it led to something good. It gave those kids a voice, and it reminded all of us that respect doesn't have an age limit." As for Joy, she spoke about it in her podcast the following week. "It was one of the most humbling moments of my career," she admitted. "I came in ready to challenge Reba McEntire. What I didn't realize was that I'd end up learning from her instead. She didn't just defend her music, she defended a whole generation, and she did it with more grace than I deserved." The studio audience, who had been there that day, described it as unforgettable, something electric that couldn't be replicated. "You could feel it," one woman later wrote on social media. "It wasn't just two celebrities arguing. It was two women having the kind of conversation everyone's afraid to have and walking away better for it." Months later, that episode was still being talked about in classrooms, news shows, and fan pages across the internet. It became the perfect example of how even a heated confrontation could turn into a meaningful lesson when handled with honesty and humility. And as for Reba, she never stopped smiling about that day. In interviews, she called it the moment that proved heart matters more than headlines. When asked if she'd ever return to The View, she laughed and said, "Only if Joy promises not to throw another punch, verbal or otherwise," Joy replied publicly a day later, on air, grinning from ear to ear. "No promises," she teased, "but if she does come back, I'll make sure to have sweet tea ready. I hear that's how you calm a southern storm." The audience erupted in laughter, and somewhere across the country, Reba probably laughed too. What had started as an explosive interview had turned into something extraordinary, a rare reminder that conflict doesn't have to end in chaos, it can end in connection. Because sometimes, the most unforgettable moments on television aren't the ones filled with scripted drama or forced debates. They're the ones where two people, from completely different worlds, find a way to meet in the middle. Where pride gives way to understanding and ego steps aside for empathy. In that Manhattan studio, under the bright glare of stage lights, something rare had happened, something real. A legend had defended her craft with unshakable passion, and a talk show host had found the courage to apologize in front of millions. And when it was all over, both women walked away not as rivals, but as proof of something much more powerful, that respect, once lost, can always be rebuilt, one honest conversation at a time.